First of all, this is not a rant, but I couldn't possibly start without sharing my thoughts on some recent news I heard. I want to address young people now, the generation which never played the PS1 classic, those who have never seen a true Resident Evil or a true Gran Turismo, or anything in particular that went with the fantastic flow of the late 80s to early and middle 90s. Yes, that was a glorious era to be around, especially as a kid. Games were different, they didn't have this DLC bullshit that's going on now, and that will probably continue in the future, I'm afraid. Games were finished, they were polished, no bugged code, no cut content, gameplay was intact, every feature was present from the start. In a word, it was all perfect. Programmers did care about their product, because if the product was not delivered fully, and if the game failed to meet the gamers' expectations, then it would simply not sell. And now here we are, in the year 2014, and all games are alike, apart from very few exceptions. Youngsters nowadays get excited on FPS, and I honestly wonder, guys, what the hell's wrong with you? The main concern here is that everything that is not an FPS is thrown away. Everything that requires even a little fraction of brain to be played, every single game that doesn't feature a glowing arrow on one of your objects or on your next target, is automatically thrown away. Even so, you're willing to take all this DLC crap. You pay to play games in early alpha stage, meaning you're paying to do the beta testing process for the companies that release such games. You're giving the programmers of said games all your money. In exchange for what? For being able to play an unfinished product that will probably never see the light of day. Because, well, you know, they already got your money. They dragged you in. Now, you're free to play a messy, buggy as hell, unfinished, unpolished product. Well, congrats, my friends. And even so, you still criticize a guru like Shinji Mikami, which created basically half the products that you're currently playing as fan of the survival horror genre. And why is that, you ask? Well, the answer you should know better than me. Young people from the age of 15 to their middle to late 20s have responded negatively to the Evil Within. This is because the Evil Within is not a first-person shooter or a first-person survival horror like Amnesia or the Outlast, but instead it's a third-person perspective survival horror, like the old good days of Resident Evil 4 and all its predecessors. This is really stupid. I mean, I read the statement from Bethesda, which is the publisher for the Evil Within, by the way, and they clearly stated that they have serious problems with young people accepting the Evil Within for what it is, for this third-person issue, apparently. This is no issue at all. This is just an issue in your heads. Guys, wake up. The world is not full of Call of Duty clones. Oh, well, yes, it is, but you shouldn't play them. Anyway, please, I'm begging you, don't boycott a potentially great game like this just because of the fact that it's not an FPS. This is stupid, this makes you unreliable customers, this is simply not acceptable. I'm a long-time fan of the genre and I started playing very early. I play games since the first Wolfenstein and even before. And this is absurd from an old-time gamer perspective. I know society is changing, everything is changing so rapidly compared to the past, and I saw a lot of rage. Yes, rage, a pure hate, in every context, not just the gaming industry. This is deeply disheartening, and I hope you young people will refrain from such behavior. Well, now we'll start talking about the Evil Within. and why it should be considered an announced masterpiece in my opinion. And mind you, this comes from an old Resident Evil fan, a survival horror fan, and one which was deeply moved by the fantastic trailer of the E3 2003, when Shinji Mikami announced Resident Evil 4, a new incarnation of its product. He pointed his finger at the screen, he addressed directly the audience, and he said, "Don't pee your pants." That, my friends, was an awesome moment. And for those of you which are too young to remember that, or even care, you can skip this part. But I will explain all this in a minute. Evil Within is basically the first game after years in which I am absolutely confident it will be 100% a great game. I'm going all the way, and I will assume that it will sell poorly, because Mikami stated in an earlier interview that it will be a very difficult game, and gamers nowadays don't accept difficult games. So to understand the Evil Within, we should take a huge step back 11 years ago and retrieve the days of our youth. The visions for the fourth installment of the Resident Evil saga weren't united. There were more visions, there were a lot of experiments to make the ultimate Resident Evil title. This dates back to the early 2000s. The first attempt at creating the new generation Resident Evil was conducted by Hideki Kamiya, and it eventually became Devil May Cry. Yes, Devil May Cry is basically the first beta of Resident Evil 4. The protagonist was a policeman. He was made to patrol a giant castle to retrieve some artifacts or uncover some sort of secret. The giant castle, by the way, was Lord Spencer's castle, and we know that Lord Spencer is, of course, related to Resident Evil, but we never see him in person, just in a very small scene in Resident Evil 5, killed by Wesker. Now, Lord Spencer might very well be a boss, some sort of final boss. And the very interesting thing is that said special agent or policeman or wherever it was had a twin, and alchemy was involved. This proved true enough in Devil May Cry 1 and 3. The basic concept is still there, as it is the concept of living mannequins, which are actual enemies you encounter and you fight. Spiritual entities, demons, etc. This first beta has some similarities with Evil Within. There is a giant mansion, similar to a castle, the art style is similar, and of course the protagonist is a cop. But wait, there's more of course, because there were 4 non-betas of Resident Evil 4 in all its iterations. This is the first. The second one came in 2002 with a fantastic trailer. This beta shows Leon S. Kennedy try to fight a fog-like monster in a giant castle. Again, this is the preferred setting of a mind game. We know from the scenario programmer of said beta that Leon was to face Wesker and a group of bioterrorists to uncover a mystery and try to defeat this giant fog-like monster, which had the progenitor virus in it. Leon's left arm was to be mutated because he entered in contact with such creature and he got infected. He had some hallucinations, he had a very limited amount of time, and he could use his arm and his mutated hand to perform revolutionary actions for the time, like grabbing the enemies, throwing them around, etc. Now this basic concept was introduced in another game, Devil May Cry 4. As you may recall, the protagonist, Nero, has his left arm completely mutated. It's a demonic arm. And not only that, the concept of disease is kept also in the Evil Within, as the main bulk of the enemy forces are some kind of infected people, which have glass shards coming out from their bodies. But not only that, cause apparently Sebastian, which is the protagonist of Evil Within, has his left arm with some kind of metal applied to it. It's starting to mutate, see? And this is awesome, cause the basic concepts of all these betas are being tied together to give form to the Evil Within. But wait, here's another hint. And this time is from the third beta of Resident Evil 4. This time it is my favorite, the so-called Hookman version, also called hallucination version. When they scrapped the second version, they kept Leon, they kept the infection, and they kept the hallucination part. They amplified the hallucination part, and they established that the enemies were somewhat spiritual. They were almost all in Leon's mind. He created his own enemies by hallucinating, and therefore, believing they are true enemies, he will die by their hands. This is entirely irrational and fantastic as a concept. The gaming world had two phases, the normal phase and the hallucination phase, and they were dynamically exchanging from one to the other. Leon was also traveling between past and future via mirrors. Now back to the Evil Within. The Evil Within has basically almost all the elements of the third beta. Not only Sebastian can travel back and forth from the past using a mirror and a special hole that is situated near a save point, but he also moves in a mansion which is very resembling the third beta. And the hallucination part? That is most likely true for the Evil Within itself. I've talked about the Hookman, right? Well, here it is. This disfigured man with a giant hook was trying to hit Leon, coming from a painting. As you can see, he walks toward Leon, he stalks him. The art style is very cool, by the way. When he appears, or any other hallucination appear, you can see the environment changing dynamically, especially with this vivid color blue. Now back to the Evil Within. As you can see, Sebastian sees the environment going all the way completely blue, and here's Ruvik. Ruvik is one of the unbeatable boss. He's a stalker, just like the Hawkman. He walks to stalk him, just like the Hawkman, and he teleports, just like the Hawkman. And the environment is blue. Now the fourth beta was never shown and was involving the further evolution of zombies into Ganados. But basically now you can see the first three betas of Resident Evil 4 contain strong elements which are also present in the Evil Within. They are fantastic, their presentation is very similar, the art style is also really similar. There's a mansion, there's a castle, there's a strong resemblance with concept art which was released for Resident Evil Remake. All unused material which could potentially be in the Evil Within, and it will definitely be, in my opinion. So, here you have it. After all this analysis, you can basically see why I'm eagerly waiting for this title. Not only because it's a given that Shinji Mikami will deliver a decent survival horror game, and possibly one of the best of the last decade, but also because almost all of my secret expectations for Resident Evil 4 are being satisfied here. I am truly convinced that this title will deliver the Resident Evil 4 pure survival horror title that we deserve and we didn't get. Now that he has his own studio, composed mostly of ex-Capcom Studio 4 members, we are pretty much assured that his intentions are not only good, but they will show, and we will love it. So folks, thanks for watching. The game is almost there, only 30 days or so remaining. I'll be hopefully one of the first to get it, and I will post my comments on it. But I'm definitely sure, after years of false expectations for Resident Evil 4, that this will be a fantastic title. I'll see you next time.